what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talk.
Hey guys, today I am with Beetlejuice. What is your favorite Beetlejuice movie?
The original 1988 film, of course. It's just the perfect blend of comedy, horror, and musical. And Michael Keaton's performance is absolutely iconic.
Did you enjoy the part 2 of the Beetlejuice movie?
It was definitely an interesting sequel. I'm not sure it lived up to the original, but it had its moments. I did enjoy seeing more of my world and seeing what other characters were up to.
What was behind the scenes of that on Beetlejuice 2?
Well, it was a bit of a mess, to be honest. They had a new director, and there were some creative differences between him and Tim Burton. There were also some issues with the script, so it took a while to get everything sorted out. But in the end, I think they did a pretty good job with it.
Do you have any idea if there might be a part 3?
I'm not sure. I know they've talked about it, but there's no guarantee it will happen. But I'm always up for more adventures in the afterlife, so I'm hoping for the best.
Will we be seeing a return of the dead family, of course, the Dietz family?
That's a good question. The Dietz family has always been a big part of the Beetlejuice world. And I know that they've been talking about bringing them back for a potential third film. So we'll just have to wait and see.
What about the new live-action TV series coming out?
I've heard about that. I'm really excited to see what they do with it. It's a whole new take on the character, and I think it could be really interesting. I'm sure there will be some familiar faces in there, but it'll be interesting to see how they take the story in a different direction.
Beetlejuice makeup or mask, was it hot that day? Do you even remember it?
Oh, it was definitely a hot day. I remember that the makeup and the mask were both pretty uncomfortable, but I also remember that I was having a lot of fun with it. I mean, I got to be this big, scary character that people were terrified of. It was pretty cool.
Did you enjoy your Halloween and Pumpkin Day costume?
You know, I've had a lot of different costumes over the years, but I think the Halloween and Pumpkin Day ones were some of my favorites. They were just so much fun to wear, and people loved seeing me in them. Plus, it was always a great excuse to scare some people.
Are you in the process of making a Beetlejuice video game?
Actually, we are. We've been working on it for a while now, and it's coming along really well. It's going to be a whole new adventure for Beetlejuice fans to enjoy. We're really excited about it.
Where in the afterlife are you currently?
Well, I'm all over the place, really. I have my own little corner of the afterlife where I spend a lot of time, but I also like to travel around. There are so many different places to explore, and I like to keep things interesting.
What's the game going to be called?
I can't say for sure just yet, but we're thinking of calling it something like Beetlejuice, the Afterlife Adventure. It's still in the early stages, but we're really excited about the possibilities.
What's it going to be about?
Well, it's going to be a whole new story set in the Beetlejuice universe. It'll be a mix of action, adventure, and humor with some of your favorite characters from the films. We're also planning to add some new characters to the mix, so it should be a lot of fun.
Will there be a special guest?
You mean like a celebrity or something?
Yes.
I don't know if we've got any big names lined up yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if we did. We're working with some pretty talented people on this project, so who knows what could happen.
What's the story of the game going to be about?
Well, the basic premise is that Beetlejuice has been sent back to the afterlife, but something's gone wrong. The balance between life and death has been disrupted, and he needs to fix it. It'll be a mix of action, adventure, and puzzle solving as he tries to find a way to restore the balance and save the afterlife.
Are you a fan of the Addams Family?
Of course. I mean, who doesn't love the Addams Family? They're a classic and a staple of the horror comedy genre. I've always loved their humor and the way they approach things.
What is going to be the story in the game?
Well, I can't give too much away, but basically the story will center around Beetlejuice trying to find out what's causing the imbalance between life and death. Along the way, he'll encounter all sorts of characters, both old and new, and he'll have to use his wits and his powers to solve the mystery and save the afterlife.
1988. Beetlejuice was your favorite.
It's definitely one of my favorites. I think it's a really unique and interesting take on the horror genre. I love the humor and the way it mixes different styles and tones. It's just a really fun film to watch.
Why did you pick it to be your favorite?
Well, it's got a lot of things going for it. The story is great and it's got some really memorable characters. It's just a really enjoyable film overall.
What is your childhood as Beetlejuice?
My childhood as Beetlejuice was pretty wild, to say the least. I was always getting into trouble and causing chaos, but it was also a lot of fun. I had a lot of freedom to do whatever I wanted, and I took full advantage of it.
Your early years was like before you became Beetlejuice. Is there anything you remember about it?
I don't remember too much from my early years. I think I was just a regular kid like any other, but I do remember being a bit of a troublemaker even then. I always liked to push the boundaries and see what I could get away with.
Who were your friends growing up?
I didn't really have many friends. I was always kind of a loner, and I preferred it that way. But I did have one friend who was pretty close to me. His name was George. He was a good kid, but he was always getting me into trouble.
What is your favorite sports?
I never really played sports much, but I did enjoy watching them. I was always a fan of the big team sports like football and baseball. I also liked watching soccer and basketball.
Do you have any dream places that you want to visit one day?
Oh, I have a whole list of places I'd love to visit. I'd love to see the pyramids in Egypt, the Great Wall of China, and the Eiffel Tower in France. I also want to explore the Amazon rainforest and see all the amazing creatures that live there.
What is your favorite holiday?
I'd have to say Halloween. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but I just love the atmosphere and the excitement of the holiday. Plus, I get to wear a costume and scare people, which is always fun.
Did you and Lydia ever have a romantic relationship?
Well, I wouldn't say we had a traditional romantic relationship, but we did have a certain connection. I think we both felt a bit of a spark between us, but it was always complicated. We were always trying to hide our feelings for each other, but it was hard to deny that there was something there.
What is your favorite food?
I'd have to say pizza. I know it's a pretty basic answer, but it's just so delicious. I love the different toppings and the different ways to make it. It's always a good choice, and I never get tired of it.
What about your favorite drink?
I'd have to say root beer. It's just so refreshing and sweet. I love the way it tastes, and I always feel so good after drinking it. Plus, it's a classic American beverage, so it's always fun to have a glass or two.
What is your favorite?
I love a good piece of chocolate cake. I know it's a pretty basic choice, but it's just so delicious. I love the way that chocolate and the frosting melt in my mouth, and it's always a great way to end a meal.
Do you have any idea about the ghost of Beetlejuice?
The ghost of Beetlejuice? That's a new one. Do you mean like a ghost version of me?
Yeah.
That would be pretty interesting. I can't even imagine what a ghost version of me would be like. Would it be like a more serious, darker version of me? Or would it be a more lighthearted, playful version?
What about your favorite candy?
I'd have to say sour gummy worms. I love the way they taste, and the texture is so fun to chew on. Plus, they come in all different colors and flavors, so there's always something new to try.
Can you name your top 20 S horror movie that you watched so far?
Sure, let's see. I'd say The Shining, Nightmare on Elm Street, The Exorcist, Saw, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Blair Witch Project, The Conjuring, Halloween, Poltergeist, It Follows, The Ring, The Silence of the Lambs, The Thing, Alien, Evil Dead, The Babadook, Insidious, Get Out, Hereditary, and The Witch.
What was your childhood like?
It was pretty normal, I guess. I grew up in a small town, and my parents were always there for me. I had a pretty good childhood, but I also had my fair share of trouble. I was always getting into fights and causing trouble, but I also had some good times.
What is the dangerous stunt you did and be Beetlejuice that you did?
Well, there have been a few times when I've pushed the limits a bit too far. I've jumped off rooftops, I've run through traffic, I've even jumped through a window. But I guess the most dangerous stunt I ever did was when I tried to fly. It was a pretty big mistake, and I almost got myself killed. But I guess that's just the kind of person I am.
Are you a risk taker?
Oh, definitely. I'm not one to play it safe. I like to take chances and push the boundaries. Sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't, but that's part of the fun.
What about your favorite monster?
Well, I've always been a fan of classic monsters like Frankenstein and Dracula, but I also really like the monsters from modern horror movies like Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers. They're both really iconic and terrifying in their own way.
What is the scariest experience you've had as Beetlejuice?
I don't like to think about it too much, but there was one time when I was really scared. It was a few years ago, and I was in a haunted house. I was walking through this dark hallway, and I heard something behind me. I turned around, and there was this huge, terrifying monster chasing after me. I ran as fast as I could, but it was gaining on me. I thought I was going to die, but then I saw a door, and I just ran through it. It was the most terrifying moment of my life.
Do you have any nightmares that haunt you?
Yeah, I do. I have this recurring nightmare where I'm in a dark, empty room and there's this figure in the corner. It's just staring at me and I can't move. I try to scream, but no sound comes out. It's a really unsettling feeling, and I wake up in a cold sweat every time.
What's your favorite color?
I'd have to say red. It's a bold, powerful color that always grabs my attention. I love how it stands out and makes a statement. What's your favorite color?
Well, mine is blue. Blue is my favorite.
Blue is a great color too. It's calming and soothing, and it always makes me feel relaxed. I like how it can be bright and cheerful or dark and moody. It's really versatile, and I think it's a great choice.
What do you do on your spare time?
I like to do a lot of different things. I like to explore new places, try new things, and just have fun. I also like to read and watch movies, and I'm always up for a good conversation. I guess you could say I'm a pretty adventurous person.
What is your 2025 bucket list ideas you top 10?
Well, let's see. I'd like to visit some more countries. I've been to a few already, but there are so many more I want to see. I'd also like to try some new activities like skydiving or bungee jumping. And I'd love to try out some new hobbies like learning to play a musical instrument.
What is your favorite car?
I'd have to say a Lamborghini. It's just such a sleek, stylish car, and it's got a lot of power. I've always wanted to drive one, but they're pretty expensive. Maybe one day I'll be able to afford one.
What are your top 5 cars?
That's a tough one. I'd say the Lamborghini, the Ferrari, the Porsche, the Bugatti, and the Aston Martin. They're all really fast and sleek, and I love the way they look.
Do you have any favorite movies?
I'd have to say The Shining is my favorite. I love the suspense and the tension in that movie, and I think it's a really well-made film. I also really like The Exorcist and The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They're both really scary and intense, and I think they're great examples of the horror genre.
What your dream house and why?
Well, I'd love to have a big fancy mansion with lots of rooms and space. I'd want it to have a big yard and a pool, and I'd want it to be in a nice, quiet neighborhood. I'd also want it to have a state-of-the-art kitchen and a huge library. I'd love to have a place where I could just relax and enjoy life.
If you could meet one person, who would be why?
That's a tough one. I've always wanted to meet the Dalai Lama. I think he's a really wise and inspiring person, and I'd love to hear his perspective on life and spirituality.
What do you play on your computer?
I'm a big gamer. I love playing all kinds of games, from first-person shooters to role-playing games. I also like to watch movies and shows on my computer. I have a pretty good setup, and I'm always looking for new things to try.
Do you play video games on a PlayStation or Xbox?
I have a PlayStation. I've been playing games on it for years, and I have a lot of great memories attached to it. It's a great console, and I'm always excited to see what new games come out for it.
Are you ready for GTA 6 come out if they ever make it in time?
I'm definitely excited for it. It's been a long time coming, and I can't wait to see what they've got in store for us. I'm hoping it'll be as good as the previous games, if not better.
Do you have any pets?
No, I don't have any pets. I've always wanted a dog, but I've never really had the time or the space for one. Maybe someday I'll get one, but for now, I'm just happy to have my freedom.
If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
That's a tough one. I think I'd want to be able to fly. It's always been a dream of mine to be able to soar through the air and see the world from a different perspective. Plus, it would be really useful for getting around quickly.
What if they make a flying car, for example? Will you fly in the air where you want to go?
That's a good question. I guess it would depend on the situation. If I had to get somewhere quickly, then I'd definitely take the flying car. But if I was just going for a joyride, I'd probably prefer to fly myself. It just feels more natural and free, you know?
Have you been to Disneyland?
Yeah, I've been to Disneyland a few times. It's a great place, and I always have a lot of fun there. I love the rides and the atmosphere, and it's just a really magical place. Do you like Disneyland?
What is your favorite Disney movie?
It's a tough one. I'd have to say Beauty and the Beast. I just love the story and the characters, and it's always been one of my favorites. What's your favorite Disney movie?
My favorite Disney movie is Sleeping Beauty.
That's a good one too. I really like the animation and the music in that movie, and I think it has a really interesting story with the whole fairy tale aspect and the curse. What do you like most about
The main character, Princess Aurora, and the way she falls in love with the prince.
I agree. I think the romance is really sweet and touching, and I love how they have to overcome so many obstacles to be together. It's a classic story of true love conquering all.
I'm so glad we can go to the theme park. I want to get a ride on the launch pad ride, and I want to get some candy, and I want to get some ice cream.
Yeah, it'll be a fun day. And you know what? I think we should do all that. We'll get on the launch pad ride, get some candy and ice cream, and then maybe we can go to the gift shop and get a souvenir. What do you think?
What your favorite ride in Disney?
I think it would have to be Space Mountain. I just love the thrill of the ride and the feeling of being in space. It's always a fun experience, and I always look forward to it when I'm at the park. What about you? What's your favorite?
What if somebody summoned you, said Beetlejuice 3 times?
Well, if someone summoned me 3 times, I'd definitely come. I'd have to see who it was and what they wanted. But I'd also be a bit annoyed because I don't like being summoned without a good reason.
What's the hardest scene that you did in Beetlejuice that you remember doing?
I'd have to say the scene where I was trying to get Lydia to kiss me. It was a really intense and emotional scene, and I had to really dig deep to get into the character's headspace.
Which scene in Beetlejuice that you were running away from something that you remember doing?
There were a few scenes like that. One of the most memorable ones was when I was running from the Dietz's house after they found out about me. I was running as fast as I could, and I thought I was going to get caught, but then I jumped into the car and drove away.
What's your favorite line that you did in Beetlejuice?
That's a tough one. I'd have to say my favorite line was, "I'm a complicated man. I need like 3 shrinks." It's just a really funny and self-aware moment, and it shows how I'm not always the most serious person.
What's the longest time you've been in character?
I've been in character for hours at a time. I've done whole days of filming where I've been in character the whole time. It can be pretty tiring, but it's also really rewarding when you get into the zone and the character just takes over.
Which scene in Beetlejuice that you were laughing the hardest?
I think it was the scene where I was trying to scare the Dietzes in their house. I was just doing all these crazy things, and they were just laughing and not taking me seriously. It was so frustrating, but also really funny.
What is your favorite place to haunt?
I don't really have a favorite place to haunt. I just like to go wherever the fun is. I've haunted a lot of different places over the years, from houses to parks to malls. But if I had to pick one, I'd say I really like haunting theaters. There's something about the energy in a theater that's really exciting. And it's always fun to see people's reactions when I show up.
What is your favorite prop that you used in Beetlejuice?
That's a tough one. I'd have to say the skull. I really liked how it added a creepy element to the movie, and it was also fun to play with. I'd always try to come up with new ways to use it, and it was always a great prop to work with.
What is your favorite scene to shoot with Winona Ryder?
I'd have to say the scene where we're talking in the kitchen. I always thought she was a really great actress, and she was really fun to work with. We had a lot of good chemistry, and it was always easy to get into character when we were together.
What is your favorite memory from making Beetlejuice?
I'd have to say the whole experience was really special. It was my first big movie, and it was a really exciting time for me. I met a lot of great people, and I learned a lot about the film industry. It was also really fun to be part of a project that was so popular and successful. I'll always have fond memories of that time in my life.
What is your favorite scene in Beetlejuice?
That's another tough one. I think it would have to be the scene where I'm dancing with the mirror. I really liked the way it looked, and it was a fun way to show off my character's personality. Plus, it was just a really fun scene to film.
What is your favorite song from the Beetlejuice soundtrack? What is your favorite season of South Park?
I'd have to say season 14. It's just a really well written and funny season and has some of my favorite episodes. I especially like the episode where Cartman becomes a police officer and the one where he has a crush on Heidi Turner.
Have you met the South Park people?
Yeah, I've met Trey Parker and Matt Stone a few times. They're really nice guys and they're always really funny. I've also met some of the other writers and producers, and they're all really talented and creative people.
What is your favorite scene in the South Park movie?
That's another tough one. I'd have to say the scene where Cartman is in the theater watching the movie. It's just so funny to see him try to understand what's going on. And it's also a really creative way to introduce the characters.
Do you, in the episode South Park, Cartman said, "Screw you guys, I am going home"?
Yeah, that's the one. It's just a really classic South Park moment, and it always makes me laugh.
If you could time travel back in time, what day you want to go to?
That's a tough one. I'd have to say I'd like to go back to the 1920s. It was a really interesting time in history, and I think it would be fun to see what it was like. I'd also like to meet some of the famous people from that era, like Al Capone and F. Scott Fitzgerald.
What about Beetlejuice theme park?
That's a fun idea. I think it would be a really unique and interesting theme park. You could have all kinds of different rides and attractions, all based on the Beetlejuice universe. You could have the jump in the line dance floor, the red, hot, and blue cafe, and even a Beetlejuice hotel. It would be a really fun and exciting place to visit.
Who is your favorite person in the Beetlejuice movie?
I'd have to say Winona Ryder. She was such a great actress, and she really brought a lot of energy and personality to the character of Lydia Dietz. She was also really fun to work with, and I always enjoyed our scenes together.
What is your favorite hobby?
That's a tough one. I'd have to say writing. I really enjoy coming up with stories and characters, and it's always a fun way to express myself. I also like to read, and I've always been a big fan of horror and fantasy books.
Have you met the SpongeBob actors before?
Yes, I have. I've met Tom Kenny, who plays SpongeBob, and he's a really nice guy. I've also met some of the other actors like Bill Fagerbach and Roger Bumpass. They're all really talented people, and it was fun to get to know them a little bit.
Do you like using the prop like the Halloween poster?
Yes, I do. I really like how the prop adds a creepy element to the movie, and it's always fun to work with. I think it's a great way to create a spooky atmosphere, and it's also a good way to get the audience's attention.
How many times did breaks during the Beetlejuice movie?
It's hard to say exactly, but I'd say probably around 10 or 15 times. We had to do a lot of takes and different shots, so there were a lot of breaks in between. But we always tried to keep things moving and make the most of our time on set.
What if Beetlejuice is real? How you feel about it?
Well, that's a pretty interesting question. If Beetlejuice was real, I'd probably be a little bit scared. He's a very powerful and unpredictable character, and I'd be worried that he might try to cause trouble. But I'd also be curious to see what he was like in person, and I'd probably try to talk to him and see what he was like.
If you could meet your childhood self, what you would say to him?
That's a tough one. I think I'd tell my childhood self to not worry so much about what other people think and to just be myself. I'd also tell him to enjoy life and make the most of every moment. I'd also tell him that it's okay to make mistakes and that they're all part of the learning process. And
Who is the person you admire the most?
that's a really tough question. I'd have to say my parents. They've always been there for me and supported me, and they've always believed in me. They've always encouraged me to follow my dreams and to never give up on myself. They've been such a huge part of my life, and I can't imagine where I'd be without them.
If you have 3 wishes, what would you wish for?
That's a tough one. I'd probably wish for good health, happiness, and success. I think those are the 3 most important things in life, and if I had those, I'd be happy. I'd also wish for the ability to travel and see the world, because I think it's important to experience different cultures and perspectives.
Did you feel comfortable wearing that wig?
To be honest, the wig was a little itchy and uncomfortable, but I understood why it was important for the character, so I just tried to deal with it the best I could. It was definitely a lot of fun to wear, though. I felt like I really got into character when I had the wig on.
What is your favorite food in Beetlejuice?
That's a tough one. I'd have to say the graveyard chili. It's just so delicious and it's also a bit spooky. I also really like the sound of the Jump in the Line song, and I think the dance floor is a lot of fun. I'd also have to mention the Red Hot and Blue Cafe, which has some really great food.
What is your favorite activity in Beetlejuice?
That's a tough one. I'd have to say the graveyard scenes. I love the spooky atmosphere, and I always have a lot of fun playing the part of the ghost. I also really like the way the cemetery is set up with all the tombstones and the statues. It's just a really cool place to explore.
If you're going to stay in one place at the park, where is the first place would you go?
That's a tough one. I'd probably go to the graveyard first. It's just such a cool and interesting place, and I always enjoy exploring it. I'd also go to the Red Hot and Blue Cafe because I love the food there. And I'd probably check out the dance floor as well because it's always a lot of fun.
What's the Beetlejuice shoes? Did you like it?
I did like the Beetlejuice shoes. They were a lot of fun to wear, and they really added to the character's look. They were also pretty comfortable, which was a plus. I'd definitely wear them again if I had the chance.
About the outfit itself?
The outfit itself was really great. It was really well designed, and it really fit the character. I especially liked the cape because it was so dramatic, and it really made me feel like a ghost. The makeup was also really cool, and it was a lot of fun to apply it every morning.
What was your least favorite part about playing Beetlejuice?
That's a tough one. I think it would have to be the long hours. The filming process could be very tiring and stressful at times, and it was always a challenge to keep up with the schedule. But I also think it was worth it because the final product was really great.
Do you remember the long scene?
Yeah, I remember that scene. It was a really intense scene, and it took a lot of work to get it right, but I think it was worth it in the end because it's one of the most memorable scenes in the movie.
Do you remember the feeling of you feeling like your soul is coming out of your body?
I do remember that feeling. It was a really strange and surreal experience, but it was also really cool. I felt like I was being transported into another world, and I could feel the energy of the character flowing through me. It was a really unique and powerful feeling, and I'm glad I got to experience it.
Do you remember the little Beetlejuice?
Yeah, I remember the little Beetlejuice. It was a really cute and funny moment, and I enjoyed playing the part. It was also a nice break from the intense scenes, and it was fun to just have a bit of lightheartedness.
What do you think about the girl in the movie that say, "We can't do this again"?
That's a tough one. I'd have to say I felt a little bit sad for her. She was obviously really upset and frustrated, and I think she was just trying to protect herself. I think she was just scared, and I can understand why she wouldn't want to get involved with a ghost. But I also think she was being a little bit too cautious, and I think she could have given Beetlejuice a chance.
Did you like the red and blue and white jacket?
Yeah, I really liked the red and blue and white jacket. It was a really cool and stylish outfit, and I thought it fit the character really well. I also liked how it was a bit different from the usual black and white ghost attire. It added a bit of color and personality to the character.
What about the flower with the girl and the song called "You Are the Best"?
That was a really sweet moment. The song was a really nice touch, and I think it really added to the romance of the scene. It was also a nice way to show the character's softer side, and it was a nice way to contrast with the more intense scenes. I really liked that part of the movie.
Do you remember the part that they're saying the monster is back?
Yeah, I remember that part. It was a really tense and exciting moment, and it was a big turning point in the movie. It was also a bit of a shock because we didn't expect the monster to come back so soon. But it was a great way to keep the audience on their toes, and it made the movie even more exciting.
What was the hardest scene that you did in the movie?
That's a tough one. I'd have to say the graveyard scene was the hardest. It was a really intense and emotional scene, and it required a lot of concentration and focus. So I also had to do a lot of physical acting, and it was really tiring, but I'm glad I was able to push through it because I think it really added to the scene.
Do you remember the part when you're the one that's coming in the window?
Yeah, I remember that part. It was a really cool and dramatic moment, and I think it was a great way to introduce the character. It was also a bit scary because I didn't know what was going to happen next. But I think it was a really effective way to get the audience's attention, and it really set the tone for the rest of the movie.
Do you remember the part that there's a lot of Beetlejuice and they're saying the monster is back and What was your feeling about that? What was the last scene that you did in the movie?
The last scene that I did in the movie was a final scene with the Jump in the Line song. It was a really fun and upbeat scene, and it was a great way to end the movie. I really enjoyed dancing and singing along with the song, and it was a really positive and uplifting way to end the story.
Did you like the actress who was really C in the movie?
Yeah, I did like her. She was a really talented actress, and she brought a lot of energy and personality to the character. She was also really beautiful, and I think she added a lot to the movie. I think she was a perfect fit for the role.
Did you remember the time when she is almost kissing you?
Yeah, I remember that moment. It was a really tense and romantic moment, and I think it really added to the drama of the scene. I think it was a great way to show the chemistry between the characters, and it was also a nice way to keep the audience on their toes.
Was the one thing that you really hated about the character?
That's a tough one. I'd have to say the character's personality. He was a bit of a jerk, and he didn't always treat people with respect. I think that was the biggest challenge for me because I had to try to find a way to make him likable and relatable, but I think I did a pretty good job, and I'm proud of the way the character turned out.
How do you feel about being in a horror movie?
It's definitely not something I would have ever imagined myself doing. I've always been more of a comedy guy, but I really enjoyed the challenge of playing a horror character. It was a bit scary at times, but I think it was also really fun and rewarding. I'm glad I got the chance to do it, and I think it helped me to grow as an actor.
If you got a call from Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to act with him,
That would be a dream come true. I've always been a big fan of Dwayne Johnson, and I think he's one of the most talented and charismatic actors out there. I'd love the opportunity to work with him, and I'd be honored to be a part of one of his projects. I think it would be a really exciting and rewarding experience, and I'd do my best to bring my A game.
all right, that's the end of the interview. Do you want to say anything before I end it? Do you have Instagram, TikTok that you own that I can follow?
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today. It was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed answering your questions. I don't have an Instagram or TikTok, but I do have a Twitter account that you can follow me on. It's at Beetlejuice the movie, and I'd love for you to follow me.
Before I end, won't say anything to your fans.
Sure, I can say something to my fans. What would you like me to say?
Whatever you feel like saying to them.
I just want to say thank you to all my fans for supporting me in the movie. It means a lot to me that you all enjoy the character and the story, and I'm glad that I could bring him to life. I hope you all continue to enjoy the movie and the character for many years to come. Thank you for your support and your love.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed talking to you today, and it was a pleasure to get to know you better. I'll be sure to check out your Twitter and follow you there.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, too. I'm glad you enjoyed the interview, and I hope you'll continue to follow my work. I'm always looking for new opportunities and challenges, and I'm excited to see what the future holds. Thank you again for your time and for the opportunity to talk to you.
Before I end the interview, can you say anything to your haters?
Sure, I can say something to my haters, to all the people who have ever hated on me or my work. I just want to say that I understand why you might not like the character or the movie, but I also want you to know that I've worked hard to bring Beetlejuice to life, and I'm proud of what I've accomplished. I hope that one day you'll be able to see past the negativity and appreciate the character for what he is.
Can you say something for your support?
Of course, to all my supporters, I just want to say thank you for all your love and support. I'm so grateful for your loyalty and your belief in me, and I'm so happy that you've enjoyed the character in the movie. I promise to keep working hard and to bring you more exciting and entertaining content in the future. Thank you for everything.